Very nice. And today we have the great distinct pleasure of having Laurel Federbush in here again today. And welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having
It's
me.
been a while since you've been in here.
Yeah, too long.
Yeah.
Oh, before I forget, that was the theme from Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky.
That's beautiful. I
Oh,
mean,
thank you.
yeah, we have a guest in the control booth with me, and he was like, he just smiled, he was beaming when that was going up. He said he just it's a beautiful song. So,
Oh,
and
that's nice.
anyway, I mean, I personally have a bias towards the harp. I mean, it's like of course, there's plenty of gay jokes going around when the guy admits they like the harp, but I don't care. I like the harp music. I mean, it's just to me, there's a beauty to it. It's almost indescribable.
You have good taste.
Yeah, well, I agree. See, but of course we're both biased, I guess.
Oh,
But
yeah, of course.
no, anyway, you've been doing quite a bit. I mean, I see you post on Facebook quite a bit. Plus, scrolling on the banner there too is also contact information of how people can reach you. And that's your that's your manager, right? There we're showing
My
on
agent, yeah.
yeah, agent. Okay, manager, agent. I forget the distinctions between them, but
Yeah, I don't know the exact distinction either. I know they're an entertainment agency, so they don't just handle me. They have all kinds of like disc jockeys or whatever you want for your event.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, and on the back of that card there was just an amazing amount of information about who they had the who they helped out, who they sent all over the place. They send all over the place.
Right. Yeah. So it's not just me. Yeah.
Now, like we've covered this before, but you got first-time listeners or viewers, I should say. You've been into playing the harp for how many years now?
Since I was 7.
7.
I'm
That's
not
a while
going to say
ago.
how many years that is. But
Okay, so it's like she wants to be kind of the woman of mystery yet. So
yeah.
yeah, but it's been and you went to I always thought it was interesting. You went to college up in Canada,
Yeah, University of Toronto. I got
Toronto.
my bachelor's degree there.
And that was in music?
Yes.
yeah, and no, it's like and you're typically out of you perform in and around the Ann Arbor area, Ypsilanti area,
Yeah,
Greater
that's right.
Detroit area, Jackson area.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere in the Lower Peninsula.
Yeah. She has harp, will travel.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's
so
like
my car is, I do a lot of driving. Yeah.
It's an amazing instrument. Every time I see it, I just can't get over the intricacy of that, and the expense of one of those things is amazing, and just the amount of care you have to give it when you're transporting it. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, your whole your whole vehicle's outfitted for it basically. I mean, it's like you being in it's almost secondary. This seems to take precedent. The comfort and the safety of the harp.
Yeah, I guess so. That's true.
It's all
Yeah,
padded.
they are
and
too
everything.
expensive. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yes, it's an amazing. Of course, it wouldn't definitely be an instrument somebody starting wanting to have their kid play who's on a budget, unless they can like really save up and do fundraisers.
Well, actually, I shouldn't have said they're too expensive because that's one thing that's a problem. A lot of people assume they'll be too expensive, so they don't take up the harp, even if they're interested in. The truth is, you can actually start with a pretty reasonably priced folk harp. Either very small, like lap size, or else a little bigger, a kind that would stand on the floor, but isn't quite as big as this one. And those are actually pretty affordable. They run from like a few hundred to a few $1,000s, depending on what size or what quality you want to get. But those can actually be very affordable. And the only time you need to get a big one is if you're going to do like really advanced playing, like in an orchestra, or very jazz music, or things that are very complicated. But you can, like for folk music or Christmas carols, or the kinds of things most people would want to do with a harp, you could actually get by with a very affordable one. So
Yeah, the price range you were talking about basically is not any much different than a person buying their kid a guitar.
Right.
Within a few $100 range. And a lot of times you can get deals on them too if you're persistent enough and you're lucky enough. Timing's everything in a lot of things, and finding instruments at a good reasonable price is just one of those things.
right.
What inspired you to take up the harp? I mean, there's so many rave instruments. I think you said before your family is kind of musically inclined and also encouraged your interest in music. But what inspired you to take up the harp?
It was just my favorite instrument for as long as I can remember. I'm not quite sure exactly when that began. I remember I was a little kid. I watched The Friendly Giant, and they had some little character that played a little toy harp, some little puppet character. And I think that trying to and in our music classes, sometimes a teacher would bring in an auto harp, which isn't the same. I think that's not even technically in the same musical family as this kind of harp, but nonetheless, it has a lot of strings. So that I just always liked the idea of plucking or strumming strings. And then I think we went to some music museum and saw some old harps. So those are some of my earlier memories. And then my mom had a friend whose daughter played the harp. Ann Arbor has the University of Michigan, so that this they have more harpists because of the music school there than a lot of areas would. So I was able to start taking lessons with her daughter, who studied with the harp professor at the university. And so that, yeah, she's actually kind of interesting harpist. Her name is Stephanie Bennett. She's out in California right now, and she gets to do harp jobs like playing for movie stars, their weddings. So it's really interesting to read her newsletters. She's, I played at the, Jennifer Lopez wedding, or things like that. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, so of course I don't think you seem to be fairly happy getting. They're doing the gigs that you're doing here, because it's quite interesting. Some places you've been to.
My clients are just as glamorous in their own way. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they're not probably weren't as high paying, but I mean it's like you've also recently too. You've been doing a lot of playing for the Caregiver Ranch out there, with Nancy DeCatch.
Yeah, that's right.
And also a few months ago, I read some interesting articles about the effects of whether, and they were saying it's not all music, but they're focused upon harp music actually having the ability to help certain types of neurological disorders, and they appeal that for some reason that the harp music seems to have a very strong positive impact upon people going through that.
Right. That's not an area of expertise of mine, but I know that there are people who do specialize in that. Like that's actually a specialty that people study. But yeah, the harp is supposed to have a healing effect. Exactly how much of what, I think that's a little bit different. People make different claims. Like some people make kind of extreme claims, like it can cure just everything, like it's some kind of magical thing. And that's probably overstating it, but at the very least it has a soothing effect. And so it's probably how much healing depends somewhat on the individual, and it's probably somewhere in between just being soothing and being a miracle cure for everything.
I remember reading in the Old Testament when I was a kid in Sunday school, King David, before he became the king, he was like, in Saul's household, and Saul, after he was like distressed, the stress of being a king, the battles and the warfare and all that was weighing on him. They'd call in David to play on the lyre, wasn't it, or the harp?
Probably, yeah. I don't know exactly what kind of harp he played, yeah.
But it's like, so it's kind of weird that modern medical research is kind of coming back to something that seemed that they already discovered a while ago, but they were kind of dismissive of. But it's just, to me, it always seems like, knowledge is always there, and then people just overlook it for some reason. They're dismissive of it, and then it comes back to the foreground again, and they have to recognize it or deal with it or talk about it. But the harp is just got a soothing quality to it. I mean, it's like it just also has a elegance. It has a, I don't know. To me, it's the music that you would listen to when you want to. Not to feel relaxed, to feel more, feel the stress drop off you, and it's just, I mean, do you get that kind of effect when you're playing though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I were a more relaxed person. I can be kind of high strung. Pardon pun. But yeah, I think I would be even more so if I didn't play the harp. I think it does have a relaxing effect, and it is kind of a nice feeling, like you have the harp up against you, and you can feel the vibrations going through your body from the harp, and it is a good feeling. That's one of the things that makes it enjoyable to play.
And if you lived in an apartment setting, you playing the harp is probably far less distracting to your neighbors than if you're a percussionist. I mean, it just seems like I'd rather live next door to a harp player than somebody who was like a rock and roll drummer if I want to get sleep at night,
My dad thought that it was sort of an easy instrument to, as far as like when I was just beginning harp lessons, it's probably more fun listening to a beginning harpist than, maybe a beginning, violinist. Or some instruments don't sound quite as good when you're just starting out. And, a harp, even if you play wrong notes, the basic sound, plucking the strings is probably easier to take, right from the beginning than some other instruments.
It doesn't sound so, like, I know I used to play horn, made attempts at it, and I can just imagine I just gotta say, my parents are probably extremely tolerant because you're blowing it hard. You don't know how to control the sound, and you're off. I mean, it probably was nerve wracking. And so, mom and dad, if you're listening, wherever you are, I'm sorry about that. But I was encouraged. I mean, we had the instruments around the house. I mean, we had trombones, we had trumpets, we had the saxophones, we had clarinets. Different people and different family members over the years have played them, and then they passed away or they just abandoned interested or whatever, and we had them around the house. So I mean, anything I wanted to pick up largely was there. But
That's good.
I didn't have the stick to itiveness to stick with it, and I probably was a disappointment. My dad, I never learned how to read music, but my sister can read it. She could do some sight reading and all that. But
well, a lot of the best musicians can't read music. There are a lot of people who play very well by ear. So,
but that'd be awfully hard for you to play that kind of approach.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get better at playing by ear. I was classically trained, so I was trained exclusively at reading notes, and then, well, not exclusively, like, sort of as I got more advanced, some of my instructors tried to teach me about jazz and some improvisation. But when you start out by reading notes, those kinds of things don't come so easily to you. So now I'm getting somewhat better at it. A lot of the time I just read like a melody and chord symbols and improvise from the chord symbols. But I would like to be better at playing by ear, but I'm working at it.
Yeah, it's like my dad would say, he'd list the ones that didn't play, couldn't read music, the musicians that are out there. But he always said, you got to know the rules and know where to break them.
That's right. Yeah.
But I mean, I think you still got to have like I don't know how to say it other than I think music's really got to be in your soul to actually. You can know. I know people know the techniques of it. They know the sound. They know all the science behind making music, but they're just unable to make anything sound interesting or something you want to listen to. And like there's certain singers, like you got Joe Cocker. He's got an imperfect voice, seriously flawed musically, but he's very interesting to listen to. But see, the harp, there's still a precision there, but it doesn't. There's still kind of a. I would say a soul to it. It wasn't so technically. I don't like a lot of these lot of artificial music. I'd call it. The stuff that's like synthesizer, interesting effect. But if it's an emphasis on that, I kind of lose interest in myself. I like something more. To use kind of a flaky term, but organic. Anything that's got wood in it, anything that's got the human impulse in it. That's what I prefer rather than something that's all technical. I don't know. Just to me, it's like when somebody does a synthesizer, I can't do it, so I can't really criticize. If you can't do better, don't criticize. But I just don't prefer that type of music. I just don't like it.
Yeah, I guess I tend to think there's a place for both and for combinations and mixtures of different things too. So.
Because basically, music, if you just boil down to, I mean, it's an art of noise. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's like sounds again like really. I don't want to go into too many abstract theories of what art and what's music, but it is an art of noise. It's basically you're making a sound, but for some reason humans find it pleasing, or they want to have it repeated, or they want to find a way of doing that. And it's like G.K. Chesterton uses art and music as indication that humankind is always human. You're always human because you didn't see these apes or these other animals engaging in it to the degree of where they had such finesse for music and for art. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the hallmarks. I mean, the ability to want to sit there and discern those sounds and to actually try to put them back together and the need to rearrange them so you can do that again. I mean, it's like music is something that's like I think is probably one of the indicators of human society that is probably not going to be repeated anyway. And they're animal culture, or if there is a culture within animals. But we're getting too abstract. But if you look at art, and music, I mean, it's basically art's needed, and so is music. I'm not saying that, but when you talk about just the pragmatics of existence, some people want to be dismissive of art and literature or music or whatever. But there was all things that basically make being human worth being human. All the other stress. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, it makes all the other things worthwhile, to go through that.
Well, yeah, I guess at some point when I was a little kid, I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a musician because I didn't think it was a useful enough thing in the grand scheme of things. Like it wasn't curing cancer, being a doctor or saving anyone's life in any way. But now I think that music is just as important in its own way as those other things. I don't think it's more important, but I don't think it's less important either.
I'm surprised how many doctors I've talked to, many of them, in their course of education have a background in art, a background in music. I mean, on their undergrad degree, there's a heavy emphasis on. I mean, and some of the medical schools actually encourage have an interest in arts, or some of them also philosophy. But the music and art is like two of the ones I've seen. They recommend for people going into medicine to have a connection to. Like, well, look at Oliver Sacks, the psychiatrist. He's a musicologist. He's a music expert in music, and I don't you're familiar with his works. About neuroscience and neuropsychology.
No, I'm not. But
Oh, really? Yeah, and he's a musicologist. He
Okay.
just has this love affair with music, and he's got just an amazing body of. Well, he's wrote several case studies. He's made drama, brought them to light, and of course he does a great job talking about the human side of those cases, and but he has this love for music, and just that's a big thing for him. And I see that I see a common thread of people who are really highly intelligent and who are doing research, having an interest, and I think they are drawing from music and from art for their other pursuits or the other disciplines they're more well known for.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I don't know if you know Huey Lewis. He scored
Yeah.
a perfect score on the SATs for math.
Okay.
They thought he cheated on it, and he redid the test and scored the same
Oh,
score.
I like his music. Yeah,
And
that's cool.
Now, do you find yourself nowadays they have such a way of trying to teach kids about across the curriculum, teaching interdisciplinary things across, basically tying stuff together. Do you find yourself saying tying what you learned in music, making something easier for you in the everyday, like mathematics or anything? Do you find that happening, or?
I don't know. My dad's a mathematician. I'm not particularly good at math. I don't know. I mean, I'm good at certain things on the harp. I don't know how well it translates to other situations. It probably does. I guess I'm not always aware of how it does.
Yeah, I think we all do stuff that we don't know the steps by which we arrive at stuff, and I think that might be the case for anybody, whether music or art or any kind of discipline that's we consider something beyond what we are doing the everyday. Like basically, we have to walk, eat, chew, and use the bathroom. Basically.
Well, I guess one thing that does help is on the harp or any instrument. One of the main things is learning how to concentrate and focus on what you're doing. That was one of the hardest things for me to learn as a kid because I guess I'm someone who likes to daydream. So, and which is also good for a musician actually because you have to be able to call on your intuitive side. But learning how to focus is something that is useful in a lot of other situations. So you have to be able to focus very intently on something.
Now, I don't know if you're a Star Trek person, but I remember like Spock, in the old TV series of Star Trek that started all. He was a Vulcan. They're supposed to be this logical based group of people, based others, but they also had a strong affinity for music. And I always thought that was, kind of a contradictory because to me, music's more of a something internal, more like a kind of almost, if you will, not irrational like it means like a bizarre or histrionic kind of behaviors, but it's something more impulsive, something more tied to the like breathing. You see, we have to breathe. And that's why I think that art and those kind of pursuits like that come from is basically such a basic human need that it's hard to suppress that. I mean, you look at vocalizations of children engage in, they will start singing it eventually or doing some kind of thing that trying to control their voices and trying to make that sound differently. To me, but when I look at somebody like Spock in that TV series, and that's a real far-fetched example, I know, but they had this affinity and appreciation for music, even in that culture, was so logically based. I always thought that was kind of almost contradictory, in the source of their fascination for music,
Okay. Yeah, well, I know there is a logical side to music, too. Some people are more into the music theory. I do music theory in a very basic way, like in terms of being able to read chords or break something down into what is the basic chord of this measure, that measure. So that's music theory. But some people get into very deluxe advanced theory, which is more logic-based. And that's not something I'm particularly good at, but some people's minds work that way.
Now, you also do some composing of your own.
Yeah.
Would you want to play a piece that you compose on your own?
Sure.
What's the name of it first, though?
Okay, I might have played some of these things I've been playing before here, but I'll play this one again because I really like it. This is called Tianas Lullaby. I wrote it for, a friend of mine had a daughter named Tiana, and this was written when she was I don't know if she was a baby or a toddler, but this is Tianas Lullaby.
That's beautiful. I mean, if I was a kid and that was like had my name attached to that, I'd be so flattered. I mean, that was.
Thank you.
Of course, it's much better with a female name attached to that piece than it would be a guy's name. So, in my opinion, but that's just a beautiful piece. And now,
Thank you.
I always admired people who could actually come up with their own compositions. I mean, when I was a kid, I'd look at I try to copy notes, the musical notes, notations on a piece of paper, and write them down and say that's music. And my dad said, yeah, but if you played this, it would sound like crap. But the way you got it, okay. But so it's like, and it's like, what does come first? I mean, obviously that didn't have any. I don't know if are there lyrics that you have through that too that you didn't?
No.
But so it's just, I don't know how a person could do that. I mean, to me, it just amazes me that they could take those notes and they say, I think this sounds great together. And now, do you just sit there and play it first, or you actually hear it first and then try to copy that?
Sometimes it goes one way and sometimes it goes another way. Like often, I mean, it's probably, I don't know if it's something what a composer should admit, it's just me sitting there noodling around, letting my fingers go on random notes, and sometimes they just happen to hit upon something that sounds really good together. I mean, sometimes I start noodling based on chord patterns or things that I already know sound good, and then I go from there. But then sometimes I get a tune in my head, and then I work on it that way. Or sometimes it's a mood that I'm in. The mood gives me the idea for whatever I'm doing.
Now, do you find yourself like actually being in more like the mood for composing, and when you're in certain moods or when you had certain things going on in your life? Does that seem to be the source?
Yeah, well, I also do some creative writing, and it seems like often I feel creatively driven in one direction or another. Sometimes it's more in the writing direction, sometimes it's more music, and sometimes it's a combination. Like sometimes I do like poems set to harp music. I don't have any of those prepared right now, but maybe some future time I'll do one of those for you. But usually, or some other direction, some other project I'm working on. But I often feel creative in one direction or another. I'm not always super creative in a million different things all at once, though. Like often it's focused either one way or another way.
Yeah, because to me it's just like when somebody paints. I mean, I just don't know what causes them to. What allows them to do that? I mean, the organization, is it there, or you just let everything fall and then if it works, it works? I mean, I guess all those approaches could apply. Each person might have a different approach to it.
Yeah, I think some people say, oh, I never compose, and they think composing has to be something very complicated, like you have to know all the rules of music theory and all the different musical forms, and maybe for some people it does help to have all of that knowledge, and then they learn to compose after they've learned all of that. But for me, it's just a pretty simple thing, just, deciding that certain things sound good and then playing it. Like I don't make it. I don't think it has to be any more complicated than that. I mean, if you want to compose a motet or some specific musical form, then you would need to know the rules of that form. But I think some of that's just that, by hearing different music, you have an intuitive sense of what sounds good together. Even if you don't, your conscious mind might not know all the rules, but you've ingested those rules just from the culture. So.
Yeah, that's like the second or third time the word intuitiveness came in during the conversation, and I guess that's what I'm saying too. About music, to me, it's like something. It's felt more than thought for me. But I mean, there's some people you're saying that it's a lot. There is a part of or a side part of the discipline of music that is very logically based. I don't know how much I would really like listening to something based upon that, though. I mean,
but you can't always tell. Like sometimes I hear a piece of music, and to me, it really tells a story and evokes all kinds of emotions. So I've tried to read what the composer has to say, like what's the story behind this, but instead they give a very music theory kind of analysis of it. Well, the main theme starts on an E flat and goes, and it's very technical. So like the composer himself or herself might have thought of it very analytically, but nonetheless, the product they come up with is one that, at least for me, is very emotional and, sort of tells a story. So different people, the creator might think of it one way and the listener might think of it a different way.
So like when my niece was very young, she was like, we were trying to get her to read, and she could read, and she just didn't know that she was reading. She was like, she could read something. It didn't dawn on her that she was reading, and we said, how else are you're getting the right words, you're saying the right things. You didn't memorize this. We just show this to you. Yeah. So how did you know this? And she was almost inconceivable for she was actually reading. Wow. When you're starting to read, when a person starts to learn music, read the music and then trying to make that sound that's going to be the appropriate one according to the notation on the page, I bet that was a thrill. I bet that's a thrill for anybody, because basically you're saying, I'm doing this.
Well, I don't know. The beginning, like it was a 7-year-old kid when I started, and I was, my parents had to sort of make me practice. Like I wanted to play the harp, but actually doing the work to learn to play the harp was a different matter. So I'm not sure I would describe it as thrilling. It's sort of a very long, laborious process. I mean, at some points you have some moments of satisfaction, like once you master a piece and you play it for someone and they like it, but I'm not sure if I was aware of, thinking, oh, I can read this music. Like, maybe as an adult when you're learning something, you're more aware of accomplishing something, and that brings you a thrill. But I guess when I was first learning it, I didn't really see it that way.
But what kept you inspired to go? I mean, it's an arduous process. I think it would be a lot of it, especially when a kid has got impulse control is not something in hand. You're probably just like any other kid, want to go and play, want to watch TV, right. Just want to do nothing and vegetate, But
yeah, I think my main thing, you said use the word stick to itiveness. Yeah. I think that was the main thing that made me able to be a professional harpist. Like there were other areas that I think other people had more. There are other people that had more natural talent, or maybe we're willing to, maybe practice more hours a day, or, they might have had other ways that they were better than I was. But I think the main thing was that I just stuck to it longer. Like there are, sometimes I've had students who had a whole lot of natural talent, but then just went in some other direction and didn't stay with the harp. And I think for me, I was from the time I was a kid, the harp sort of became a part of my identity. I mean, maybe that was sort of something that I thought made me kind of special or unique, or if I was feeling kind of, insecure or something, I thought, well, at least I play the harp. These other people, they don't play the harp, so they sort of got latched onto that as a way of making myself feel superior.
Or self-esteem.
Yeah, I guess so.
Nowadays there's such a concentration trying to develop self-esteem in kids.
Right.
I always thought that the way they're going about it now, I think is it's ridiculous. They're trying to create like I can do this mentality before the kids ever tried anything.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, I say self-esteem comes from the ability you find yourself saying, I'm pretty good at this. I'm gonna foster this. I'm gonna build this up. I'm gonna develop it. And then you say, gee, I can do this. And that's where the self-esteem develops. I think the way they were trying to say, you could do anything and all this stuff. To me, it sounds like not parables, but platitudes. And platitudes kind of are hollow after a while.
Right.
Whereas I think you'd say, I accomplished this, and look, I could build on these accomplishments incrementally. I think it's just simply a matter of putting the cart before the horse when they try to develop self-esteem in children first. And I think his self-esteem comes from ability to do something.
Yeah.
And
I guess there's also a happy medium, though, because you don't want to tell a kid, you're no good at anything either. So it has to be something.
Well, encouragement, though, see, the thing is, I think a kid would actually recognize when they're able to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually,
Right, yeah.
like the illusion of, the reference to my niece, she realized that, gee, I'm actually doing this. So that's encouragement. So, that's...
Right, yeah,
it's
being encouraging is very important. But yeah, I guess giving a kid a false sense of, oh, you're the, I guess whatever you tell a kid should be based in truth instead of, like you said, in platitudes.
Yeah, because, let's face it, cliches and platitudes will wear thin on people. They see through them eventually. Kids are not... They have, humans have ability after a while to pick up on BS. And, to be crass. And I think kids are probably... when I was a kid and there was somebody who was overly trying to be nice to me, they taught to me like I was like a little puppy. Even as a 4-year-old, I got really disgusted with that. Somebody talked to me like I was a normal person.
Yeah.
I probably related to better than somebody, how you doing? I expect my tail to wag, So, but I think that was self-esteem. And I think there's so many ways, things you could talk about music that would have impact on other parts of people's lives. Like we've already, talked about mathematics skills, developing, maybe the measurable medical, improvements could be done through exposure to music. So much research has been done by, about talking about babies' exposure to music while developing in the womb yet. Just a host of information, a wealth of information out there about music, and it's just something that seems so. It's always there, and we're always slowly aware of their music. We're listening to radio, and jingles come up or musical things for commercials. Music's so integrated in part of our lives that we just don't really see how much, that is. How much a part of it is. Mm-hmm. Especially in a culture where we're exposed to TV and radio, maybe in the 1800s or 1840s or whatever, before modern mass media was a possibility, that wasn't the case. But then again, you always had recital halls are always open in areas when they got developed. People wanted to hear music. They're considered like the rock stars back then, as people who came into town and play concerts and symphonies always developed in areas. Want to be known as a more than a backwater town. So if you actually look at in America, there was a big emphasis on bringing culture to these towns that are developing out further west as we made our way westward. So and music was always a part of that. Even if it was the player piano sound coming out of a saloon, and if you see in the old westerns, it was always music that was actually kind of a hallmark that something was happening.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. That something was happening. Yeah, I like that.
Music. I can't think of one day that I don't hear music, even if I'm not consciously trying to hear music. You go buy a car, even if you don't have a radio or TV on in your house. You go by somebody, you drive past somebody who's got it on their vehicle and listening to it. Somebody's house you walk by or on a bicycle by or whatever, they're playing music or some jingles up for some commercial. Music, it is a basic human thing. I don't know how else to describe it,
Yeah, that's very true.
Who do you find yourself respecting and admiring, like musically? I know we're both see Morrissey for the second time he canceled on us.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're still hoping. I think you said that he still might come back or something like that.
Now, who would you say like you would actually who's out there now who you love to play with? Their performance.
Well, I think I mentioned when I was here before. I had a friend in Toronto who was a very good guitarist, Neil Chapman, and he's played in rock groups in the Toronto area. none of them have been very famous here, except he played with Buffy St. Marie for a while, so she's kind of popular. And I got to know him personally, so he influenced my ideas about improvising and things like that. But I listen to a lot of rock music and pop music. I like Nicki Minaj. I like Maroon 5. I like a lot of these pop groups, and I like more classic rock. Like Aerosmith or The Who or Pink Floyd, things like that. And then of course I play in symphony orchestras, so I like a lot of the symphonic music too. So
See, a lot of people would think a harp player, a harpist would, playing with a symphony and stuff like that, there would be like us against them. That stuff's crap. I'm not going to listen to that. Those guys are not real musicians. And all the conversation you and I have had in the past couple of years, I never got that. You never had this this arrogance, this aloofness. You had an appreciation for almost every type of music out there that we talked about. I mean, and it's like, in a person who is like accomplished musician, such as yourself, they have a tendency to be kind of standoffish, and you just don't seem to have that.
Well, different people are different. I did have one harp teacher in my training. I won't say which one, but she really despised jazz music. She thought it's like smut or something like that, and so there is that. There are some people who do have that kind of attitude, but then there are some of the famous composers really liked all different kinds of music and would incorporate jazz in their symphonies, and so there's a whole wide range of attitudes, and some people. And then there are some things I came across once in a while, that people who have kind of like a prejudice against one specific type of music, like they like all music except for like country music or something like that. That's the one that I've heard often, and I guess I think that's kind of a prejudice, like if you make a point of liking all music except for one kind, and because I think, like my brother listens to a lot of, it used to be called hardcore or punk, but I think now maybe there are different terms for it, and that's really not my favorite kind of music, but even so, like, there would always, like if you'd play a record of some group, usually there would be one song on the album that I would like maybe I wouldn't like the rest of the album, but there would be one song I liked. So I think in just about any kind of music you can find something that you like even if it's not your favorite kind of music. So
I used to have a real disdain for country music myself growing up, and then 15 years ago I just started listening to it with a kind of like, just lower the... I was raised because it was, my mom's family were immigrants, and a lot of people from the South didn't like immigrants, especially in this area. And the KKK was pretty active, and they burned crosses on my great-grandparents' lawn here, right just a few blocks from where the studio's at now. And so I was always taught to identify anybody who spoke with an accent like that and listen to that kind of music as somebody you didn't want to deal with. And so it's like, but the music, and when I'm looking at it, and I actually look at the roots of it, a lot of that came from like England and England and the UK. I mean, the Irish music and a lot of the especially like bluegrass and the development into the country music. And then when you look at the crossover, the intertwining of like soul and gospel and all that stuff, which are considered mostly from the former slaves and all that. America is just an amazing kind of a crossroads for music, and it'd be kind of really kind of arrogant to just dismiss all of that. Especially when you consider yourself. I take pride in being from an immigrant background, and let's face it, my family, they grasp that. I had a concert violinist in my family. My mom's family had a concert violinist, and my own grandfather could play pretty much any stringed instrument. But he just played it by ear. He just sit around, pluck away on it for a while, and he actually could pluck out a tune or strum out a tune within maybe an hour.
Wow. Cool.
He could do
That's
it.
Neat.
And he could play mandolin. Mandolin he played quite well. And my mom had a great voice, and she actually could hear. She had a great sound, I think, for pitch and tone and all that. She had like a great ear for that.
Well, that's neat.
So I mean, and she was from the Hungarian, background, and so. But when you look at Western Europe and the intermingling between those cultures too, I mean, all the orchestras pieces and all that. I mean, those are all like from Germanic countries or Eastern European or Central European countries or Russian country, Russia. That was even further, proof that to me that music kind of became so intertwined. There's very few people would actually sit there and listen to a piece and say, I can hear this, and that's their source. They accept it as a wholeness,
Oh, okay.
And, but I mean, country music, I actually had to give it a listen to. And I mean, the new country is vastly different, of course. It's more popish. you know.
Okay.
But there's nothing wrong with pop. I mean, people want to criticize, and I can't say no. There's some bands I kind of mock myself, but I don't want to go in. But I mean, popular music is popular for a reason. Maybe it's because it's better formula and people are the companies pushing it out there are better at getting their word out, getting their product out. You can look at that in very crass commercial terms, but a lot of the music might just simply be popular because it resonates with people. It clicks.
Right.
I mean, so how can you dismiss that?
That's right. I mean, some people might sort of take pride in having superior tastes. Like, that's just what the common people listen to, but I know better, you know.
Right.
You
I've got less tolerant of that attitude because, I mean, as politically, I don't believe anybody can be a centralized planner and do a great job because you just don't have the information.
That's right.
And I just don't know why one group can be dismissed and the other one and the other one embraced and they're like some kind of savior. So I mean, you're looking at politics. You talk about music, and I think there's a politicization of music. Anything else that humans do can be used as a political instrument.
Right.
So I mean, I can't be dismissive of it or as so arrogant anymore because you basically say I don't care for it, but it does something for somebody else.
But now and then, like, there's some, like, the other day I was listening to a station and the most requested song of the night, they played the most requested song, and it was one that, you know, it's like, does anyone really like this song? You know, but I guess to a lot of people, that's their favorite song. So, I mean, you never know. Sometimes you don't know why something's popular, but that doesn't mean that the people who like it are, you know, are stupid or anything. And then sometimes a song that I don't like at all, you know, maybe 2 years from now I will like for some reason. Like, it'll sound different to me. So, yeah, I guess taste is kind of a funny thing that way.
Well, another thing is, too, I think music does, to use a cliche, I guess, but music does become a soundtrack. I mean, certain songs are playing on the radio when certain things are happening in your life, and for some reason, they become fused together almost. You can't separate them.
That's true.
There's certain songs I can hear now that I've heard 30 years ago that are, I could hear that song and go back 30 years and right in that moment almost.
Yeah, I think you and I were talking about a particular song, and you were telling me about how meaningful that song was to you, and it was a song that I had never given much thought, but the fact that you told me all that things about what it meant to you, that sort of makes me hear it differently now, you know, so it's, you know.
Well, song that comes to my mind is like that came out in the late 80s, Southern Cross by Crosby, Stills and Nash.
Okay.
I don't know if Young was in or not because Crosby, Stills and Nash, you know, they had different
Right.
different matchings there, and sometimes Neil Young was there or not. But that song, the lyrics of that are just so haunting, and they're also so true, you know, in my opinion. And to me, I often kidded, my friends often kidded, because every time we're talking about a personal problem of theirs, I always bring in song lyrics. And I swear to God, someday I'm going to actually write a psychology book or a self-help book using song lyrics as a basis for trying to understand your own behavior. And I think it's kind of funny, it's kind of silly, but I mean, like that song by Elton John said, if the sad song says so much, if somebody thought so much, I'd write it down. Sad songs do say so much.
That's
I mean,
right, yeah.
And we kind of actually, we find ourselves actually liking those kind of melancholy.
Yeah, I think
melancholy. We kind of like being melancholic, you know.
A lot of the time I like more melancholy songs more because they're more haunting. They, you know, if something's happy, it doesn't stay with you quite as long in a lot of situations. So, but if it's haunting, it kind of eats at you in a certain way. But you know that can be a good thing. So.
I had a friend one time tell me about one time one of his friends called, you know, they're hanging out. He goes, "Hey, you want to go out and get a bottle of something and sit on the steps of the old school and sit there and get depressed?" And he goes, "Yeah." And it was like, yeah, that depression sounds fun.
Yeah.
And I think that's it's almost like a perverse thing in humans' psychology and psychological makeup that we kind of connect more concretely, more almost fondly with the sadder emotions than we do the happier ones.
I guess, yeah. I guess that's what a lot of art springs from, too. Like, a lot of the greatest art springs from people who are going through real traumas or tragedies, and they create some great work of art from that, you know. Or even if it's just, like, a bad mood or something. Like, I think people who are artists more often have a very wide range of emotions rather than just being very calm and upbeat all the time. It seems like the those kind of what we think of as negative emotions can drive people to create great art somehow.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot and see if you want to play another piece
Sure.
before we wrap this up tonight. So,
Okay.
what do you think you have in mind there?
Okay, this is a piece by Handel. Speaking of that, this is called, I think the translation is "Let Us Weep," but it's whatever I got the pronunciation, Lascia Kyo Pianga. So this is it's a vocal song, but this is a harp version of it.
Another very beautiful piece, in my opinion. There. Okay, we'll go over the three songs you covered today. Was like, that piece again. What was the name of that again?
Lascia Kyo Pianga means "Let Us Weep." It's by George Friedrich Handel.
Okay, and then the other one, well, the first one you did was a composition you did yourself, wasn't it?
Or that was the middle one.
The middle one, okay.
That was Tianas Lullaby by me, and the first one was Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky, or theme from Swan Lake.
And you also do have some. Excuse me here. Oh, hold on here, sorry. Sorry about that. I thought I had shut that off. But also, I was gonna say you also have several others. You have CDs out. You already have CDs.
Yeah, I have a CD of my own compositions called "Walking Scandal."
Now, where somebody can get that?
Through me.
Through you, okay.
Yeah.
And also, you are on Facebook. And did you ever have a MySpace page?
I did briefly. Somehow I never caught on to MySpace. Facebook was somehow easier for me to catch on.
That's how I got to it, because you're a friend of a friend, and I said, "Wow!" I saw in the picture you were playing a harp, and went,
"Okay."
I don't think I've ever known a harp player.
Cool.
So it's like, and that was about two or three years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Laurel. I mean, it's like you're just a very nice person. You're a very talented individual. And I definitely, you're welcome to come here anytime you want to, and wish you the best. And also, again, like Facebook, if people want to, friend you there, they can do that.
Right. And like the contact information says, you can book me for weddings through Rush Entertainment. Rush is RUSCH.
Yeah, and thanks again, and thank you very much. And like I said, I'll hope to see you very soon. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, likewise.
Bye.